Thank you for tuning in with us tonight at Manna from Heaven Ministries. It is such a pleasure to be with you. I've grown fond of you so much till whenever we come together, and I've been given the opportunity to share with you the things that Father's speaking into my heart, I don't take that lightly. I don't. It's a responsibility that, quite frankly, weighs heavy on me. And I want to be able to hear from Him a word in due season. That means a word that's appropriate for what you're going through. And you know what I found in the course of my ministry? That Father never gives me something hot off the press to share with you without He first brings it home to me. And so as I began to look into this week's Torah portion, and naturally every time you examine these Torah portions, we've been doing this for several years now, Father is so amazing that He reveals something new. His Word is alive. And this particular Torah portion, it begins in Numbers chapter 4, verse 21, through chapter 7, verse 89. The title of it is Naso, and it can be interpreted several different ways in the King James English. I personally like the translation elevate, to lift up. Turn to your neighbor and tell them, elevate your mind. This particular Torah portion is the longest of all the parshas. It's 176 verses. And if you, as our custom has been, you hear these numbers, you automatically know we need to stop right there and examine it, because this particular number, 176, it actually encapsulates the entire premise of this Torah portion in that one number. And so I stopped and I examined that number 176 and found out it was the numeric value or the gematria of another Hebrew word that I was familiar with, and you may be, Strong's number 3326, spelt Yod Zadi Vav Ayin, and the word is Yatsua. It's a masculine noun that means bed. The term bed here is figurative of the place of procreation. Did y'all hear what I just said? This 176 verse Torah portion is now going to reveal something to you about the bed of Yahweh, the place of procreation that has been reserved for Him and for His bride. And when I saw that, I said, my goodness, there's something that's in this that He's wanting to teach me. Now, it may not be fitting for you, but I know as I begin to delve into this Torah portion, it gave me some insight about how David, because see, I understand, even though I'm a male, I'm part of that company, because in Him there's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, bond nor free. So in Him, I fit into that company known as the redeemed, also known as the bride. And so He's about to teach me something in this Torah portion about the bedchamber, the place of procreation. And I know how powerful His Word is, and I know when a word is spoken at the appropriate moment, it will explode and stuff will happen. We've been talking about the miraculous here tonight. And yet, to be quite honest with you, the miracles, the supernatural that we're espousing across the church body-wide are really few and far between. And I believe with all my heart that is not the will of Yah. So there's a disconnect that's keeping us from walking in the supernatural and the miraculous. Did you hear what I said? We also are quick to declare that we're going out in a greater exodus in the coming days, and that's paralleled according to the Exodus encounter that we saw in the book of Exodus. And we know that when the children of Israel left out, they left out not weak, not frail, not timid, not broke. Did you hear me? Yahweh says, I brought you out with a mighty hand and on wings outstretched. And if that's the case, and I'm part of that company of redeemed, then I need to learn what's going on in this Torah portion, because I'm not walking in this yet. And if I'm going to be walking in it in the days ahead of us, then I'm going to have to meet the protocol that he's established for His bedchamber. The 176, that word in Hebrew, Yatsua, is telling us that there is a place of intimacy by Him, a place of procreation, and He will speak into you everything that you need for every facet of your life, so that in every encounter with the enemy, you should not be lacking. Look across the body. Look across the body and see if that's fact. At present, it's not. This Torah portion falls just on the heels of the Feast of Pentecost, Shavuot. And it's at Shavuot that the bride was betrothed. So again, you can see He's preparing us to go into the bedchamber. Y'all following? And there's certain prerequisites that have to be established if we're expecting to get there. And I'm going to tell you, not everybody that calls himself part of the bride's going to make it without we follow these rules and protocol, and this Torah portion goes into that. This is amazing. That word Yatsua, Strong's number 3326, was first seen in Genesis 49 verse 4, and it's where Jacob is pronouncing blessings and curses literally over his children. And he speaks regarding his firstborn son, Reuven. He says that you were my strength. He was the firstborn. Reuben literally means, behold a son. And he says regarding Reuben that he defiled his father's bed. And if you know the story, you understand that what happened, that Reuben came in and took the wife of his own father and compromised her. Thus, he made his father's bed exposed to nakedness. That's that term. Are y'all with me? So, this particular phrase here is also associated with adultery that is committed, and the very act of adultery we see is first revealed in Genesis chapter 3, where Adam and Eve compromised the bed of Yahweh. And this is a theme that you find from Genesis chapter 1. We already looked at it last couple of Torah portions. You can see this very same theme from Genesis till it finishes the book of Revelation. You can't escape this. The company known as the believing community is actually going to be segregated into two camps. Those that are the bride, that are walking in fidelity and virtue and righteousness, and those that are in that camp known as the antagonistic bride, also known as the harlot bride. Are y'all follow me? There's no middle ground here based on what I'm looking at in the Torah. That's why Revelation 18:4 says, come out of her, my people. Now, I was looking at the phrase Gan Eden, since that's where this verse occurs. Gan meaning garden, Garden of Eden. And since it was also known as the location of the intimate place, isn't that what this word Yatsua is defined as? The bedchamber, the place of procreation. Well, while I was looking, I found that the phrase Gan Eden has a numeric value of 177. What was the numeric value of Yatsua? 176. And as I looked at it, I felt there's something significant here, because the difference, if you subtract one from the other, is one. One is the Aleph. Aleph represents the head, the chief one. And if you remove the Aleph and put the wrong head in the bedchamber, then you've got a compromise. Can you see that? The word Aleph is actually written Aleph, Pei, He. And if you look at the way that its numeric value is, Aleph, Lamed, Pei, my bad. The numeric value is 111. And it just so happens, I know Yahweh does it by accident, that the number 111 is the numeric value of the word Olah. Remember the word Olah? Olah, offering. Olah is the elevated offering. Well, that's the title of this Torah portion. Elevate, to lift up. So there's definitely a connection here. And the Olah offering, listen to this, was also known as the burnt offering, which will, again, as I said, tie us back into this Torah portion. But there's a twist, an ironic twist, if you will, in this particular section, because the Olah offering was for the Levites alone. And we found out, listening to Brittany share last night, the Levites represented the company that would minister to Yah also known as Messiah, at the tabernacle. And it's a shadow picture of the bride who ministers to her husband. Now, some of you ladies may take offense at this, but you're called, if you're in a marriage relationship, you're called to serve your husband. But you won't have a problem serving your husband if your husband's providing for you the covering that you see in the tabernacle. Typified in the tabernacle, typified in the person of Messiah. Because he loves you enough that he would lay down his life for you. And so there's a tremendous disconnect today. We've gotten this thing out of focus. And what Father's trying to share with us, that as the Levites were called to minister to Yahweh, representing the bride, there was another offering that you see right in the center of this Torah portion in Numbers chapter 5, and it's called the jealousy offering. The offering of the bitter waters for that bride that was adulterous. And so now what you find is the Olah offering and the jealousy offering are mirrors of one another. You see the blessing and the curse side. Both of them are elevated offerings, and both of them are burnt offerings, and you'll find that the adulterous bride, if her nakedness is exposed as she offers up that elevated offering, she's compromised. You know, the Levites were told if you ascend up those stairs, your nakedness is to be covered, right? Well, the adulterous bride has her nakedness exposed, and you know the penalty for the adulterous bride? She's a burnt offering. Have you noticed that connection? The Olah offering was a burnt offering, but the end result of the jealousy offering was also that of a burnt offering, because the law required the priest's daughter or the priest's wife, if she commits adultery, she's to be burned. Now you know, and people that would say, well, hell is not a literal place, I would beg to differ, because hell was prepared for the adulterous bride, and hell is on fire. Why? Because she's going to be a burnt offering. And so Charles got that one right when he said, this time tomorrow, my friend, you'll be burning in oceans of liquid fire. Say amen right there. Amen? I want to look at the priestly duties that's associated with this elevated offering here. And while we look at it, we're going to look at the unique fashion that the design, if you will, the way that Father's laid out the names of the Levites here. And as we look at it, you'll also see their specific duties, and you'll find that they're hidden from view in the English language, but in the Hebrew it's so candidly laid open that you just can't hardly miss it if you're willing to look in the Hebrew language. But you'll also find that as you start looking at these names are prophetic. As I said earlier, this Torah portion encapsulates the entire premise, not only this Torah portion in that one word, but all of the redemptive salvific work of Yah is seen right here in this Torah portion. And it's summed up in the prophetic names. Remember, names embody the character of the individual, and they paint a message. I want to look, if you will, at that phrase we were addressing earlier, the Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. The word garden in Hebrew, Strong's number 1588, is the word Gan, spelled with a Gimel Nun. I like that phrase, Gimel Nun. And it means an enclosure, a fenced-off place. Well, isn't that what the intimate place should be? It should be a fenced-off, enclosed place. But it strongly infers, listen to this, it strongly infers that this fenced-off place is fenced off for the purpose of defending and protecting it. Did y'all hear what I just said? What about your intimate place? What about the fenced-off place that Yahweh is supposed to be dwelling in? Have we been defending and protecting it? Well, that's what this word infers. You have to ask yourself, why would Father in the Hebrew language infer that the garden had to, because see, it was created before the fall, and we understand that he saw the end from the beginning, but in the Hebrew language he will tell you exactly what's going to happen if you're willing to look. Let's examine the word garden, gan, and then let's look at the Hebrew letter Gimel. It's written with a Gimel, Mem, Lamed. And of course it spells Gimel. But it's also rendered, if you change the vowel points, it's rendered as Gamal, Strong's number 1580. And that word Gamal means to recompense, to pay somebody, to reward them. It can mean to either reward or recompense them with benevolence and kindness for their obedience, or to render judgment based on their rebellious acts. And again, it's not an accident that the first usage is seen here where judgment occurred first in Gan Eden. And if you look at the Gimel in the Paleo Hebrew, it doesn't show you that quite as well as it does here. I don't know if I guess my pointers quit pointing. But if you look at the Gimel, it actually looks like a foot with the heel attached to it. You see that? And if you look at the way that it's actually placed, it looks as if the heel is in a striking position. How many of you remember Genesis chapter 3, verse 15? When it was said to the serpent, from this time forward there will be enmity between you and between the woman and the seed of the two. And you will bruise his heel while he will bruise your head. So right there in the midst of Gan Eden, that word that should have been translated as the place of delight, the enclosed place of delight, that's what Eden's translated as. You see a shadow picture in the Hebrew language of one who right in the center of the protected place is going to reach his heel out to strike against the very one that Yahweh said would come through the womb. Can y'all see that? What is the Hebrew letter that follows the Gimel and Gan? The Nun. What is the Nun significant of? Signifying all that pertains to life. Do you remember the individual that took Moshe's place? Joshua. Who was Joshua's dad? Nun. He was known as Yehoshua, Joshua, son of Nun, and his name in Hebrew is the same as that of Yeshua. So Yeshua was known as the son of Nun, or the son of life. And so right there in Gan Eden, you see the enemy, a picture of the enemy about to strike with his heel the very son of life. So there's your hint already of what was going to take place in Gan Eden even before chapter 3 was ever penned by Moshe. Now, if you go back and look at the progressive order of Genesis chapter 3:15, when Yahweh pronounced that curse upon the serpent and subsequently on Adam and Eve, it follows what took place in that encounter between Adam and Eve and the serpent. They were made naked. Remember, when their nakedness was exposed, they were in the midst of an encounter with Yahweh. When you have the opportunity to bring an olah offering, you are about, an elevated or a lifted up offering, you are about to have an encounter with Him. I'm convinced that what was about to take place was, the sacrifices that you see in the Old Testament are shadow pictures of an encounter with Yah. And we know that His voice is seen, manifested in the garden, in the cool of the day. Adam and Eve are there with the express purpose of elevating or lifting themselves up in His presence. But the enemies there, they are made prey to the seduction of the enemy. Their nakedness is exposed, so that olah offering, see, their nakedness was not to be exposed. The olah offering, as they are about to lift it up, and they expose themselves to nakedness with a serpent, they go from being an olah offering to a jealous offering. Can y'all see that? Well, we understand what was taking place because it was the promised seed who would not only take the penalty for the adulterous bride, but would also restore all of Adam back to Yahweh. And while I was there, I wanted to just see, these numbers are fascinating to me. So I decided I would look at the numeric value of the Yod He Vav He and the name Adam, Aleph Dalet Mem. You should be familiar with the gematria of Yod He Vav He. It's 26. Aleph Dalet Mem, Adam, the Mem is 40, Dalet 4, Aleph is 1, so it's 45. Are y'all paying attention to me? If you subtract 26 from 45, you're left with 19. When you separate the Adam from Yahweh, which is exactly what happened in Genesis chapter 3, he has to go through a redemption process. And where would that redemption process come from? Out of the womb of the woman. 19, the balance left when you subtract 26 from 45 is the numeric value of Chava, Eve. So right there again, you have a picture of the redemption plan of Yahweh in the midst of this Torah portion. And it's not an accident that Father continues to lay out everything that you see here in Numbers chapter 4 through chapter 7, in particular, right in the center. When you have something in the center of two ends, it's so that you'll focus on it. The beginning's drawing you to what's happening in the middle, and the end is there to sum up what's already taken place. So he wants you to focus on the middle of the Torah portion, and that's what takes place when the bride is accused of infidelity. Are y'all with me? And you see here, he already has taken you back to show you where the